What's up, you guys? I'm Chibi Joe, and I'm back again. Long time coming. Another improv movie review. Today, we're covering X-Men Dark Phoenix. From what I can tell, a lot of people didn't like this movie. I don't know why. I actually personally enjoyed it. Movie starts out with them Jean Grey when Jean Grey when she was younger, riding a car with her parents. She wanted to listen to something different in the music. Her mom said, like, in a minute we're just gonna listen to this one song. Jean Grey says, "You said that a few songs ago." Jean Grey starts getting really annoyed. Hello, train. Because they're not listening to music she wants to listen to, so she's using her powers to mess with the radio station. And through just being like upset and loud noise and all that stuff, she ends up flipping the car. Her mom and dad die. And then the next scene is when Professor Xavier picks her up, takes her to the school with a nice little touchy scene. Because she's basically like, I'm a monster. And he's like, or no. What was it? Or, I forgot how it went. Either like when like she said I'm a monster, or if she didn't quite understand what her powers were yet. It was like she felt herself as ordinary. And Professor Xavier handed her a pen. He's like, well, that's just a pen. But you can do extraordinary things with that pen. And I really liked that scene. And so they go on. And then he gives like even more lines of just great lines of endearment to Jean Grey. And then it fast forwards to present day when a rocket, well, quote unquote present day for the movie. Rocket goes up in the sky. Then all of a sudden there's problems with the rocket. Sorry, I had hiccups too. It's just a bad time all around. The president calls the X-Men. X-Men get launched up into the sky. And that's when they see like the weird cosmic energy. And so they are like the ship is trapped in this like weird electrical cosmic energy field. And so they go to save it. First it was Nightcrawler and Quicksilver, which by the way was amazing. Just anything with Quicksilver is just great. So then they notice that the captain's still missing. So Jean Grey and Nightcrawler go down there. Jean Grey's using her powers to hold the ship. Nightcrawler and the captain barely escape. She gets hit full blast and she absorbs all of this cosmic energy. Everyone thinks she's dead until she comes back to life. And they go back to Earth. Mystique is kind of tells Xavier there's no way she should be alive. You almost lost someone out there. Xavier's like, it doesn't matter. Everything turned out okay in the end. And basically it goes into another conversation where she's like, maybe you should call it X-Women because it seems like they're the ones saving the day around here. Which is a fair point. I'm not gonna take that away from her. So essentially, like she get Beast, Hank. I can't remember his name at first. Hank sees if Jean Grey's doing okay. She is. If anything, she's actually stronger than her and Cyclops. She leaves, and her and Cyclops get very passionate with one another. Um, there's like a celebration that night, and she basically all the noise and the fire and all that stuff just really messes with her because the Phoenix Force is basically breaking down the walls that Xavier built up because of her increased strength. And then she basically just goes ballistic and shoots just a psi wave. And Cyclops gets a little hurt because he was like talking to her. And so Jean is like passed out in her room. And so Professor Xavier basically like kind of goes into her mind, gets fought back out because he's figuring out the all the walls he built to block the truth of her father not actually being dead. Because the Phoenix Force basically increased her telepathy, where she could even hear her dad's thoughts wherever he was at. And so she wakes up and feels really bad about hurting Cyclops, and so she leaves. And then like because Scott tried stopping her, and she basically through her powers just made him pass out, and it's really sad. Because she just doesn't want to hurt him. Like of all people, she doesn't want to hurt him. And so she runs away. Trying to think. Everyone chases after her. Oh, I missed the main antagonists are these aliens. I forget what the species is called, but they're kind of some kind of empire that are wanting to get the Phoenix Force so they can basically recreate their homeworld and repopulate and all that stuff. And so, the aliens show up at the party or at like this house party or whatever. One alien turns into her, and then the other aliens also turn into them. Which I feel they were supposed to be whatever the aliens were that was in Captain Marvel. But probably due to the MCU being there, they probably had to do a lot of changes. Because this was the last non-MCU X-Men movie. So, anyways, Jean Grey runs away, goes to her dad, figures out the truth of basically Professor Xavier saying she's not hard to handle, she's not a lost cause, she just needs help, and her dad's like, no, she's a lost cause. And which really makes her mad for obvious reasons. And then the X-Men show up. She basically continues trying to convince them that I'm not who I was. It's affecting me. I don't know how to control it. And a fight ensues that ends up ending Mystique's life, which then causes her to run away to Magneto's little sanctuary. And so she basically says, "How do I not kill people?" Which is a weird question, but in her instance, where she's not even in control of when she loses, she isn't in control of her powers anymore, and so it leads to people dying around her. She doesn't want to kill them. It's just that's how it turns out. And so she's asking a guy who has no qualms of killing people. He just has a sense of morality in that he knows killing people will hurt their mission. And so and two SWAT helicopters come down to basically acquire Jean Grey. And Magneto keeps trying to convince them, I'm not going to give any of my mutants up. She's not here. And what happened is, Magneto is continually fighting with one of the officers, and all of a sudden, when the propellers start moving, and they tell Magneto to stop it because it seems like it's something Magneto would do. And Magneto's like, that's not me. And Jean Grey's like, it was me. And essentially everything goes to crap because Jean Grey destroyed one helicopter. She attempted to destroy a second helicopter, but Magneto fought her and basically sent the helicopter away, so then she can't kill them too. He demands her to leave. That is when we go back to the Xavier School for Mutants, and Hank is basically in an argument with Xavier over everything. You even get like this scene where Scott continues to convince these little kids that Jean Grey is still in there. Just there's a lot of things going on that no one understands, which is a very accurate statement. Even though everyone else is like, no, this doesn't make sense. It's like, do you guys not correlate what happened? Like, something's messing with her. She's not herself. Anyways, Hank is vengeful. So he goes to Magneto, tells Magneto, look, Jean Grey killed Mystique, which pisses Magneto off, and basically says, okay, let's kill her then. Meanwhile, the aliens, the main alien, which is in the form of a woman, I don't know if she's actually female, because I don't know how those aliens reproduce, or if they're like Namekians and just spit out eggs. Anyways, so like she's trying to convince Jean Grey to join her, and Jean Grey accepts because she's like, okay, these people know what this is and can help me control it. And so they explain what the Phoenix Force is, which is basically the ultimate force of life. Like, it creates and destroys. And so Jean Grey chooses to join them. So then Magneto and Hank, and all them travel to get to where they're at. Then Xavier, using his mind reading abilities, he sees the image in the head of where they're going, Um, and so uh, Xavier gets Nightcrawler to teleport them there. There's a huge fight scene between these guys that ends up bringing in the MCU, which I thought was great. The Mutant Control Unit called the MCU. I'm like, that's clever. So there's a kind of like a mental fight between Jean Grey, Professor Xavier, and this other woman. And Jean Grey's like, fine, take it. Which Xavier's trying to stop the best he can, but he can't because, he doesn't have working legs. That was a really intense moment of Jean Grey using her telepathy to force him to walk. And and so he is basically begging don't stop, you're gonna or no, stop, you're gonna kill her. Then the MC and then Cyclops comes in, and then Jean Grey something happens to where the lady escapes or gets blasted away. And then the MCU captures all of them. And now I'm yawning. So, they're on a train heading there. All these aliens in disguises are crawling all over this train. And all the mutants are in there, and so the MCU is you're bringing your freaking mutant friends, and it's they're not mutants, they're much more. And so, huge, amazing fight scene, one of my favorite fight scenes in a superhero movie occurs. And so then the lady who has the Phoenix Force, some of the Phoenix Force powers, is in there. Jean Grey is still passed out. Cyclops and Xavier are essentially trying to wake her up. She wakes up, destroys everything. My favorite part of that entire fight scene, there was the main black alien, and Magneto separates the cars of where the main one of the commanding aliens was in there, and he was traveling away on the train, and he just crushes the car, just crunch, just dead. It was amazing. So you had Jean Grey versus this lady, and it was just constant back and forth. They both grab each other trying to overpower one another. It doesn't work exactly as planned. Jean Grey, because Cyclops is trying to save her, and Cyclops starts disappearing, kind of like he did in X-Men Last Stand, but more dramatic, more actually emotionally felt. And so she goes off into space, they explode, and then and the epilogue happens. That's narrated by Jean Grey. The school is now called the Jean Grey School for Gifted Children. And then Professor Xavier is in France, I believe he was. And so him and Magneto have one good game of chess. And it was just very nice. It was a very nicely done movie, I thought. And for the closing thing, for this being the last X-Men movie, not part of the MCU, if they do another one, which I'm sure they will. That's the MCU or the X-Men would be very beneficial in the MCU. Even though I wish it happened sooner, so then they could do Infinity War. But Infinity War really got close to being cluttered anyways with how many characters were involved. So, I guess it's better that they didn't. Because that would, it's a the second part of Infinity War was a 3-hour movie by itself. You would have to have a third part, essentially. And so, yeah, I think they chose right. Just me personally, I think it would have been really cool to do that, but logically speaking, it would make more sense doing this way. But yeah, this movie wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but I enjoyed it. I was entertained by it. But that's all I got today. So please, if you like this video, comment, like, and subscribe. And guys, I'll see you next time. Have an awesome day and a good night. Oh, and we are on Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, and Google Podcasts, all under the name The Chibi Cast. That's CHIBI space CAST. Have an awesome day and a good night.